It's been a few weeks since we last saw cold iron cardiac surgeon Craig Stodola and his trusty assistant Steve Ball in the operating shop, with the heart of the Diesel 70 still lying beside its body. But in true gearhead fashion, a lot can happen in a short time, and progress has been moving right along.
Well, we've got the crank installed and shimmed and all cotter pinned up, and then we got to the front of the engine where we ended up with our idler gear assembly and cam gear drive, and also they run brass bushing up here for their end thrust on the crankshaft. We got that installed, and their governor drive situation is all into place. And then we're going to install the cam next after we get an oil line down here to our fitting, which in turn is fed from a manifold over here, comes across with an oil line and into that fitting and back out and goes to our rocker shafts up on top. And then we have also got our water pump installed now. And like I say, the next thing we'll do after this oil line situation goes, I will be installing a camshaft and then the boxes with the tappets in it.
The Diesel 70 holds a small scar in Caterpillar's history, a rare misstep. Its crankshaft had a nasty habit of breaking, which cut production short at fewer than 60 machines.
Yeah, the Diesel 70 was supposedly somewhere between 50 and 60 of them that were made, and there's few, I've heard upwards of 7, 8 that are left. They had problems with the engine, whether that was they had sped it up some or trying to get too much horsepower out of it, where they cracked the crankshafts. And the one that we had gotten for a rebuild, the crank was broke on it, but it looked like it had been previously worked on, and they had cut the journal down and re-welded it, but they did not put the radiuses back in the crank, which gave it a straight edge, and that's where that one had cracked. And the other thing that we heard, that maybe when they shut the engines down, they didn't decompress them so that it would freewheel when it was coming down to stop. And then that big flywheel, the weight of that, it's over 300 pounds, you know, was kind of tough on them too.
So what makes this restoration different in order to try to not have that same problem happen?
Well, we had our crank out of billet steel made, which is supposedly stronger than what they had to begin with, and then we also have everything is done with a radius in there, and so we're hoping that we have something better than what they had in the days.
With the top end buttoned up, it was time to flip the beast and get to work underneath. But turning over 2,500 pounds of iron isn't exactly a gentle process. It takes a stout hoist, steady hands, and a crash course in physics. Once she's belly up, the pony motor goes on and the bottom end work can finally begin. The pumps were gummed up with old diesel, thick as molasses, and needed a thorough cleaning before installation. When Craig needs a second opinion in the operating bay, he brings in master machinist and mechanic Rick Meyer. With over 30 years of self-taught experience equivalent to a doctorate in cold iron cardiac reconstruction, Rick's been a steady hand on several Legacy Center restorations.
Well, since last time, we've got the sleeves all installed at that time, but now we've got our pistons put in, rod bearing clearances all set, and everything rolls over nicely. We also got our pony motor put back onto it. We've got a few casting pieces that are coming yet, but after that, why then that should be done. And we've got our flywheel installed, and our lift pump for the fuel system is in. And then we've got our pumps for the injectors over here, which we are getting in and seeing how many linkages we've got and don't have. And at the moment we're overhauling the pumps themselves because they're pretty gummed up with old diesel fuel and kind of bindy. And we've got our oil filter base and stuff on, and our fuel filter system is back into place, and we've converted that over to a spin-on filter actually inside of here. And just the other day we sent out our tags to get all remanufactured. We have our governor on now. Actually, our governor is here and our linkages are here. Water pump is on, and our front mount is fit. and we are actually putting the oil pump screens, tubes, and lines on. Everything's all mocked in. We just got to do some soldering on some lines now that they're fit and everything, and then that should be ready. And then we want to pressure lube the block to see if we've got any problems that way, and maybe even actually dump a little water in the block, see how everything is around the O-ring areas on the sleeves. And hopefully next week we'll have some cylinder heads we can get stuck back together. We got most of the pieces, we're just waiting for them to put the seats in. They've got them made, had to have them made, and they got to get them cut in. So, and that's out where we're at now anyway. So,
with the fuel system cleaned and prepped, it was time to spin the flywheel and look for signs of life. The pistons start to dance, and for a moment, it feels like watching a heart pump under manual control before it learns to beat on its own.
There you go.
as long as that clay trick hands out and is nice.
I think we're going to be good with better doing.
Yeah, for some reason, we must have been on the same page yesterday. I was thinking, we ain't doing it without putting clay in. Well, we finally got our head back from the machine shop, and we've taken and put clay on top of the piston and in our recession areas to see how our valves would fall into place and what we have between the valve and the piston. And we've got probably 40 thousandths between the side here, and we had what, 170 thousandths from the valve to the top of the piston clearance, which were
Probably 70 there.
yeah,
50.
probably 50 to 70 along the side here where everything is. So everything appears that it's going to clear.
So you'd say success?
Yeah, this time.
A few more days pass and Dr. Stodola continues his work on the underbelly, headlamps strapped on and surgical wrenches in hand. But it's time to install the arteries, the lines that'll carry fluids to all the right places and keep this old heart pumping strong.
Okay, since the last time, why we got the cylinder heads back and got them installed on top here, and we were doing all of our rocker shafts this morning, push rods, and also we've got our cages back from the machine shop, got them installed and burner tubes into the head so we can install our injectors. And now we're making oil lines because everything's fed from down below and comes up, and everything's got a tube which, you know, like this here, will come from the main feed and back up to the rocker shaft. And once we have all the tubes made, we've got return lines to go on the injectors back over here, which dump into a cavity. And once we got excess fuel, then they're all drained out through these little petcocks on the side, is how they drain that off. And once we've got this accomplished, we're going to pressure feed it with some oil, and then we'll be putting it back, oil pan back on and valve covers, and hopefully sticking it in.
With the lines in place, it's time for the oil transfusion. Craig and Steve pump in fresh lifeblood, spin the flywheel to get it circulating, and check for leaks, hoping everything stays sealed tight and problem-free.
We must be flowing it through pretty good. It's getting rid of that. I don't know if we got any oil left in here.
I had 3 quarts in there.
Really?
Yep.
Well, probably filled them oil filters.
Yeah, I bet it did.
Yeah. We'll probably have to regroup, get a little more oil in here.
So what's the process here, Craig? Walk me through as you're working.
Oh, we're just trying to pre-lube the system, make sure that we got everything in place in case there's a plug or something missing or a fitting that's leaking. And we found oil filter base has got some sort of a hole or a crack in it so far. Otherwise, we're doing pretty good. We're starting to leak out here and there. It's a good thing to have a little oil in there before we stick it in.
So I'm assuming you don't want to see oil, or you do?
You do.
Oil.
So that means it's running through there then?
Yeah, going through the whole system. You got those big tubes coming from the
The
oil
pump.
block, yeah, and they all go to each main bearing.
After some final tweaks and cover plates, the engine makes its move to the military shed, where Todd Larson from Ridgeview Paint is back in action, ready to lay down a fresh coat of highway yellow.
So what's some of the prep work that you go into to get this thing ready for paint?
So what I'm doing here is we're using a wax and grease remover. As you can see, it's been painted. It's been painted before, and we're just doing it again. The yellow paint doesn't like to cover very well, so that's why you see it in multiple steps, different pieces and parts here and there. And that's why we're painting the engine now before we mount it, because we will paint it one last time. So this wax and grease remover, it's kind of like it's a wet on, wet off type of deal. You put it on wet, and then it's supposed to bring all the impurities to the surface, and then you try to dry it off. Weather like this, it's kind of tough to keep it wet, but it does a pretty good job. There's different graduations on my paint stick there, so that's what I'm looking at right now to see where I'm at for mixing. No turning back, no. Well, it's really good paint. It's got a pretty decent window on it, so I'm not too concerned about it setting up on a really hot, warm day like today. But there's other paints out there that you're getting after it. You got 1 to 2 hours to make things happen, or you got a big mess. This is a little bit more forgiving. Granted, we still got to get after it, but
So the pressure pot does what exactly?
it'll pressurize it in there, and it'll force the paint right up this tube here. And then the air comes in up there, and then you got air and fluid running through there. So it just puts your paint here instead of up there in a cup gun, and it just forces it right up to your gun for you. So I can mix up a gallon of paint. This paint is very expensive. Putting it in that pressure pot, if I would just dump that gallon of paint in there, I'd have probably had to mix about another, I don't know, a half a gallon, I suppose. A quart to a half a gallon, because that's probably about what I'd have for waste in the bottom. A quart for sure. This way here, it'll suck pretty much everything out of that gallon can, for the most part. And I probably do have a little extra paint mixed, but nothing worse than running out in the middle of a job, you know.
Todd suits up, grabs a spray gun, and steps into the paint area like an artist approaching a blank canvas. With practiced hands, he moves the nozzle like a paintbrush in the grip of Michelangelo, each pass smooth and deliberate. Layer by layer, the highway yellow comes to life, turning cold, bare iron into a machine worthy of a spotlight. Less than 24 hours after paint, the heart is headed back to the shop, ready to be reunited with the body of the Diesel 70. With the pony motor, flywheel, and all the extras installed, Craig figures the whole assembly weighs in somewhere north of 4,500 pounds. And setting something that heavy into place? That takes finesse, serious maneuvering, down to the last few millimeters. But once the cold iron heart is finally nestled back where it belongs, everyone gets to wipe their brow and take a breath. Okay, so now we got the engine back in place. In that process, walk me through that process of getting the engine back and mounted.
Yeah, this morning as we were starting to put this engine back into place, while we run into where our guide pins for driving our machine clutch, we ended up having to take 2 of them out because tolerance is very close between the flywheel and the machine clutch, so that would drop down inside. And once that was in, why then we could get our bolt started into our rear mount. And from there, why then the front sat down and very nicely up front here. We got to get our shims and everything are getting made, and we got to make sure that we are parallel with our flywheel and our engine clutch. Otherwise, our engine clutch will walk out of gear if it's not parallel. And after that, we stuck our radiator back into position, got our fan blades put on and belts all situated, which are independently tightened like the old tractors did, where they spin the pulleys in on one side, each of them. And from there, why we've got these guide pieces that got to go on. And once we have this all done, why hopefully we can mock up some water tubes And in a couple days, maybe have it so we could possibly see if everything will start and go.
Will this rare beast roar to life? We'll find out next time.